Welcome to Professor Pincushion. In this tutorial, we're going to be doing Butterick 5890, a pattern that's for a shirt. We're going to be focusing on shirt B, and this is the short sleeve shirt with a contrasting collar. When you pick up the envelope, make sure you pick up the right size. The size is listed right above the barcode. So let's take a quick look at an example of the top we'll be making today. This top has short self-lined sleeves and, as you can see, a contrasting collar. We'll go over how to create the tuck designs in the front and the back, and we'll also put a center zipper in the center back seam. Let's take a look at the sizing chart so we can get started. If you're unsure of your size, you're going to want to consult the measurement chart that's located on the top flap of the envelope. Sizes are listed at the top of this chart. You're never going to assume that your retail sizing is the same as pattern sizing because they're definitely different. Underneath here, we have all the measurements listed in inches, and then we have bust, waist, and hip. So you're going to do your measuring of your bust, waist, and hip, and then you're going to take those measurements and try to line them up in a column. Whatever column best suits you, that is going to be the size that you're going to use. On the back of the envelope, you're going to find suggested fabrics and notions. So under here, fabrics, these are the fabrics that they suggest you use for making a shirt, but they also say it's designed for light to medium weight woven fabrics. So if you find a fabric that isn't exactly one of these options, but it is a light to medium woven fabric, it is probably still acceptable to use. Under here, we have our notions. So for all views, no matter what shirt you're doing, you're going to need a 22-inch zipper and hooks and eyes. Now for the hooks and eyes, you'll see you need 1 if you're doing shirt A or C, and 2 if you're doing B and D. Then it says A, C, D, you also need some single fold bias tape. But since I'm doing shirt B, which is not located in this grouping, I don't need to worry about the bias tape. So for shirt B, I need a 22-inch zipper, and then I need 2 hooks and eyes. Also on the back of the pattern envelope, you'll see a chart that has a list of how much fabric we need to get in order to complete the project. You only need to look at the letter that you're doing. So if I'm doing shirt B, I only have to look at this section here. I can go ahead and ignore anything that has another letter, such as A. We still need to look up here. You'll see sizes, and then all the sizes are listed. So if I'm doing a size 12, everything that falls below in the same column as 12 is going to relate to that size. Once you find your letter, you'll see over here there's 45 and 60. This is the width of the fabric. So you have to look at your fabric bolt that you're purchasing and seeing if it's 45-inch width or 60-inch width fabric. Once you know that, so mine is 60-inch, I'm going to go across the row, look for column 12 or size 12, and then go down that, and wherever these two intersect, that is going to be the amount of fabric you're going to get. So for this, I'm going to need 1 1/4 yards of fabric for shirt B. But we also have the contrasting collar. So you see contrast B, doesn't matter what the width of the fabric is here. You do the same thing, you go across, go down the column, and I'm going to need 1/4 yards of contrasting fabric. Plus, we're also going to need some fusible interfacing. Again, it doesn't matter what the width is. You're just going to do the same exact thing. So for size 12, I'm going to need 5/8 of a yard of fusible interfacing. Pull out your first page of directions and you'll see a diagram like this. So these are all the shirts located in this envelope. We're going to be doing shirt B. And if we look below this chart, you'll see this. These are all the pattern pieces inside our envelope. Each one of them has a number. So this piece is number 1, and if you look at the actual pattern piece, it's also going to be numbered with a number 1 or a number 2 if we're doing the number 2 piece. We do not need to cut out all these pieces. You're only using certain ones for whatever top you're doing. Underneath here, you'll see a list of all the pattern pieces. So number 1, which is the same as this number 1, is the front AB. So the letter behind it is the view of the shirt that it's for. If I'm doing shirt B, I'm going to cut out piece number 1 because there's a B right here. If I look at number 4, it's back CD. There's no B. It's only for shirts C and D, so I don't have to worry about cutting out number 4. So I just put a check mark next to each one that I need to cut out. Now, if it's if this just said sleeve and there was no letters, that would be for all views. But none of this is the case. All of them have a letter next to it. So if you're doing B, every one that has a B, just put a check mark next to it. The tissue paper inside the envelope is going to have all your pattern pieces printed on them. You'll see they'll have a number, and then underneath they'll say what it is and then what view it's for. Sometimes the pattern pieces will have a series of lines just like this. Each line is for a different size. So to find out what size you are, you're going to look for the numbers of the sizes, and for these ones they have an arrow pointing to the line that you need to cut on. So if I was doing size 6, I would follow that up and then I would cut on this line here. If there is a solid line with no number associated with it, like here on our fold line, then that's for all sizes. Only when it appears like this do you need to cut out a certain size. Now we also have our notches. So here I have a double notch and then I have some single notches here. You want to make some sort of indication that there's a notch. So what I like to do is cut outward wherever I have a notch. You can also cut inward if you want. Just make some sort of indication so you know there's a notch there. Just don't, if you do inward, don't cut too far that you're cutting into the seam allowance area. Now notches are important because it helps us with the placement of our pieces, making sure that we place them in the right position. It's kind of like putting a puzzle together. So once you have all your pattern pieces cut out, we can then move on to placing them on our fabric. The first page is going to have the suggested layout. So what this is just how they recommend that you lay out your pattern pieces in order to make the most of your fabric. It's broken up by actually the width of the fabric. So you don't have to look at all of this. We're just going to be focusing on one set. And you can see here we have 45, 45, and 60. This is the width of the fabric. So if I'm doing 60-inch width fabric, I can go ahead, do this one, and ignore these. 45 and 45, the difference between these is going to be the sizes. So this one is sizes 6 through 16 and this one's sizes 18 through 22. So if I'm going to be doing size 18, I can go ahead and follow this example and ignore this one and this one. Let's take this one as an example. So what you're looking at here is if it's white, that means you're looking at the wrong side of the fabric. If it's shaded, you can kind of see that right here, that is the right side of the fabric. So in this particular case, it's laid out right side up, and then here at the bottom one side, they just fold over the fabric. And you can see here, F is for fold, S is for salvage, and salvage, which is the edge of the fabric. This one though, we have the F down here and then salvage at the top, and you can see the wrong side of the fabric and then the right side of the fabric just peeking out. So they just took the whole width, kept it folded in half with the wrong side of the fabric on the outside. Piece number 1, it needs to be placed on the fold of the fabric. This is the only piece that's going to be cut out that's going to be double the size of the original pattern piece. And you'll actually see on the pattern piece one side that'll say place on fold or this side on fold. So you go ahead, pin it on the fold, and when you place your straight pins in, you're going to place them so they're going to be parallel to the edge of the pattern piece. Now this piece is shaded or has dots on it, and this is white. This means that the pattern piece is placed so it's upside down. So the print side of the print on the pattern piece is down towards the fabric. If it's white, that means it's right side up. The pattern piece is right side up. Now you'll see this piece number 6, we actually have 2 of them here because you need to cut it out twice. What it is, it's kind of hanging off the edge of the fold. What I would do in this case is I would cut out 1 again on the fold, 2, we need 2 of number 2, and then 8 and 8. You'll see it twice because you actually need 4 from piece number 8. So since it's folded in half, you pin it, you cut it out, you end up with 2, and then you do it again. So I do all my other pieces. Whatever's left over here on the fold, you're going to open it up, and that should be enough room for you to get 2 of the number 6 pieces. Lastly, we need to make sure that we also cut out our contrasting and also our fusible interfacing. So this is contrast B for the collar. And you can see an example here. We only need to cut out piece number 5 for this. And you can see the fabric is folded in half. This number 5 looks like it's placed directly on the fold. It's actually right next to the fold. It does not need to place right on the fold line there. So you're going to be cutting all the way around, and you can see it's twice. So they want you to have 4 pieces from the number 5 pattern. Lastly, we have the fusible interfacing here. So it's just a single layer. You don't have to fold it in half. You just need to make sure that we cut out 2 of the number 5. You can see what they do is they lay 1, they cut it out, and then they reverse it by flipping it and placing it upside down. So you get 2 opposites number 5. And then you need 1 of number 6. Before you remove your pattern pieces from your fabric, you're definitely going to want to transfer your marks first. And you can see I have some marks here. They're either dots or circles or triangles. I even have one down here, which is going to be the tuck and stitching line. To do it, what I do is I grab a straight pin, and if you look at them, if there's a series of them, you'll see that they'll have a size next to them. You only need to do the one for your size. So I'm doing a size 12. I would find the 12 circle, and if it's just a plain circle and there's no size next to it, it means it's for all of them. I put my pin right through it, and then on the wrong side, I'm going to go ahead and mark where exactly my pin came out. And I make sure that if it's folded in half or there's 2 of them, I do it for both of them. It's very important to transfer your marks. If I remove this, you can see I have one here, here, and then I went ahead and did my tuck lines and stitching line down here. Now that all the prep work has been taken care of, the first thing I like to look at is going to be the sewing information box. This is going to tell us what the seam allowance is going to be. So it's 5/8 of an inch. Now, if they tell you just to sew a seam, but they don't give any specifics, you're always going to assume it's 5/8 of an inch. Underneath that, we have the shading key, and this is going to help us read the picture directions. So shaded is right side of fabric, white is wrong side of fabric, and then white with these little dots, that's going to be interfacing. We don't have to worry about lining or underlining. I'm going to flip this over to page 2 because now we're going to start going through the directions. What I'm going to do is read the written directions, and then I'm going to demonstrate what you need to do for that step. When you're going through the directions, not all of them are going to pertain to you. It really depends on what view you're going to do. So for example, up here, number 1, views A and B. If you're doing A or B, you're going to start with number 1. If not, if you're doing, say, for example, view D, you're going to have to scroll through the directions until you see a heading that's like this, that say views C and D, views D, or if it says all views, and that means it's for everybody. So let's get started and start with step 1. Step 1, ease stitch side edges of front between seam lines and small circles as shown. We're going to be working with piece number 1. And again, this was cut on the fold, so when you unfold it, it's twice the size. Make sure you transfer all your marks. And on each side, so here's a side seam and here's a side seam over here, you should have a small dot below the double notch up here. So all they want you to do is, you're going to be starting at the top of the side seam, but you can start 5/8 of an inch down from this top edge here. You're going to be doing a basting stitch. So it's going to be the largest stitch in your machine, no back stitching. You're going to start here and you're just going to baste along the seam line until you get to the small dot, and then you can stop. And I would do the same thing over on this side. The ease stitch is just a temporary stitch that we're putting in order to help us with the front later on. So I'm just using a contrasting thread, and I'm making sure that I do not do any back stitching. We don't want to tie any knots because we're going to be using it later. And I'm just doing it at the 5/8 line. Step 2, to make tucks in front on inside, bring lines of large circles together, stitch between large circles, press tucks flat as shown. On your pattern piece number 1, we have the tuck box. It says tuck right here, and we have circles at the corner, and then there's lines connecting it, forming a box. So I'm just showing you on the pattern piece because it's going to be a little bit easier for me to demonstrate. We're going to ignore all these other lines. We're just focusing on the box with the circle. So this is what you should have transferred to the wrong side of your number 1 fabric piece. So with your fabric piece wrong side facing up, where you can actually see your marks, you'll notice down here at the bottom of the box, you'll have arrows pointing in 2 different directions. All they want you to do is bring these 2 circles together. Same thing up here. So in the middle of the box, I'm going to pinch it right there in the middle. And you'll see now the circles, they're coming together as I'm bringing them closer, because what we're trying to do is get this line to line up with this line. It's kind of similar to doing a dart. So now I have a fold, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring both sides of the number 1 piece so they're lying underneath each other, and you have the fold on one side. Just to make sure that everything is lining up, you could stick a pin right through one of the lines and then flip it over and see if it's going through on the other side. If it is, go ahead and pin it. And I would do the same thing on this side as well. Grab some pins. So I'd stick a pin straight through. Check the other side, and if it matches, go ahead and pin it like that. And I'd probably do one right in the middle. Now, because this pattern piece was placed on the fold, you should have 2 of these boxes on number 1, because you do it on one side and then you're going to transfer the marks on the other side as well. So you get 2 of them. Then you take it to your machine and you're going to stitch on the stitching line. It doesn't matter if you do this side or if you do this side. I'm just picking this side, but it doesn't matter. And then all I'm going to do is start at 1 circle, and I'm going to stitch on my line until I get to the other circle. I'm getting ready to stitch it on my fabric, and if I could just flip it over on this side, you can see there's half my box. Here's the other half. Just folded it in half and pinned it along the stitching line, which is this line right here, and that is the line I'm going to be stitching on. You're not stitching across here or across here, just on the line that is marked stitching line. And you can go ahead and do a regular whisk stitch and definitely do a back stitching. And what this tuck is going to do is create that nice fold design that you see on the front of the shirt. The last thing we need to do is take our tucks and press them flat. I've already done one over here as an example. So this is what it looks like after we finish stitching it. You have your folded edge and then you're stitching on the stitching line here. So to do it, I'm going to lift up so the fold is sticking straight up, and I'm going to press down right in the middle of the fold. So now the sides are coming out and the folded part is now going down towards the table. You're going to take your iron and you're going to press this section so we get a nice crease, and that's what's going to create the soft fold in the front. Step 3, make tuck and back in the same manner as front. You're going to take your number 2 piece, so we should have cut 2 out of the number 2 pattern. And again, if you look at the pattern piece, you're going to see a tuck box, just like we did before. So you're doing the exact same thing to the back pieces as you did with the front. And again, you're doing it twice because there's one on each one. So let's pull this pattern piece off. And there's my box. You're going to take the box, you're going to fold it in half. Once you have the fold, you can take everything else and kind of get it out of the way. So then the fold is on its own edge. And again, you're doing this to the wrong side. You always have the wrong side when you're doing this tuck for this shirt. Grab my straight pins, making sure that this line is meeting up with this line, and then I'm just going to pin all on this line and stitch on this line. Again, you're not stitching here or here, just along the stitching line, and then you're going to press it. And I've actually already done one. So this is my other back. So I just stitched it. There's my tuck right there. And then again, press down in the middle so it goes out on the sides and creates kind of a box pleat look, and then you're going to press it with your iron. Step 4, stitch back sections together at center back, leaving it open above large circle. Clip to large circle, stitch again 1/4 inch away in seam allowance below clip, trim close to stitching, press seam to one side. Again, we're going to be working with our back pieces. So this is one of them. I have it right side facing up. I just have it turned sideways. So this is the center back, the bottom, the side seam, the armhole, the shoulder seam, and the top. I'm going to grab my other back piece and I'm going to lay it right side to right side. So now we're looking at the wrong side and it's going in the same direction, because we're going to be lining up the center back seam right here. So this line right here. And you'll notice down here at the bottom, we have a single notch, single notch. I also have a large circle right here. You should have them on both of them if you transferred your marks to both pieces. I'm going to pin from the bottom of the shirt to the circle. And we're going to stitch our 5/8 seam allowance in this area right here. So from the circle to the bottom. Everything above the circle, we're not going to stitch for right now, and you don't have to pin. I'm going to do this very short seam at the 5/8 seam allowance. Don't forget to back stitch. Definitely don't want this coming out. And you could do a regular whisk stitch, and then when you get to the bottom, back stitch again. Here's the seam I just created, and it's a little hard to see. So I drew a chalk mark where my stitching is. The next step is, at this point where you have your circle, you're going to cut into your seam allowance and trim out a notch, being careful not to cut your stitches. So you're going to get pretty close to your stitches and just do a notch like this. There you go. And then you're going to come back and you're going to stitch. So here's my original stitching line. I'm going to go up 1/4 inch from that line, and I'm going to do another set of stitches. So you do one at the 5/8 and then you do one at the 3/8. So there's going to be 2 rows of stitches from this circle down to the bottom. And then once you finish that stitch, you can go ahead and trim your seam allowance, and then you can press your seam to one side. But I'm going to go ahead, do that second row of stitch, and then go ahead and trim it and press it. Here you can see my second row of stitches, and then I'm just going to trim, leaving about maybe 1/8 inch on from my second row. So you see, I'm just leaving a little bit on, and then I would open this up, pressing this to one side. This top part remains free because I clipped the little notch there. Steps 5 through 8 are for view C and D. So we're going to go ahead and skip on to step number 9, which is we're going to start putting in the zipper. And it's broken up into multiple parts, so we're just going to take one step at a time. So 9A is based back opening edges together along seam line above large circle as shown, press. We're going to be working at the center back seam again. Remember, we have both back pieces here, the right side together. This is the area that we were just working on right here. All you're going to do now is the area above the large circle now. So all along here, you're going to pin it, and you're going to baste it at the 5/8 seam line. You don't need to do any back stitching. We're just kind of prepping this area to get ready to put in our zipper. After you stitch the basting stitch, you're going to go ahead and press it open. B, open zipper, place face down on extended seam allowance, placing zipper stop at large circle and zipper teeth on seam line. Baste in center of zipper tape, keeping back free. Here is the seam allowance I just pressed open, And I went ahead and did a chalk mark right down the middle of that seam line. So this is where we did our basting stitch. You can see my stitching right there. It's pressed open. You're going to take the seam allowance and you're going to pull it out, and all this is going to go under this. So the seam allowance is going to be on the side here. There we go. So this part of the seam allowance, there's nothing underneath it. This part, of course, has everything else underneath it. You're going to get your zipper, and this is the 22-inch zipper that was in the notions. So the side that has the tab, that is the right side of the zipper. Go ahead and open up your zipper to the bottom. There we go. The bottom of the zipper, not the tape, but the actual bottom part of the zipper teeth, that is the zipper stop. I'm going to flip the zipper so it's wrong side facing up, and the zipper stop is going to go at the very end. Right where we clip that notch where that large circle is, that is where the stop is going to go. And I'm just pinning this side to this side of the seam allowance, so the one that has nothing under it. You're going to make sure that the teeth of the zipper is going to go right in that seam line, so right where my chalk mark is. So you can go ahead, start at the bottom, and then just pin your way along, keeping that zipper teeth right in the middle of that seam line to the top. I'm going to grab my pin so I can start pinning this. And then you're going to just baste down the middle of the zipper. And I would just use a contrasting thread. This is just to hold the zipper tape in place so we can put the rest of it in. And I'm actually going to do this by hand, just using a running stitch, so we can get closer and I can show you how I do that. I got some needle and some thread, and I'm using a contrasting thread, so it's a lot easier to spot. And all I'm doing is just coming up from underneath, and again, you're just doing the seam allowance to the zipper tape. That's all you're stitching together. So I come up and then I just go straight down, and you'll see a stitch like that. Let me move this pin. I'll go up a little ways from that, and I'm just going right down the center of the tape. And if it's not perfect, it's not straight, that's okay, because all this is doing is just holding the tape to the seam allowance, just to make it a little bit easier for the rest of putting in the zipper. So then I come down, and then I come up. If you want to make it go a little quicker, move this down a little bit, you can just go like sideways like that. It's a little faster. And I'm just doing this all the way down this one side of the zipper. C, close zipper, turn pull tab up, spread back flat, baste a scant 1/4 inch from zipper teeth and across lower edge. Here's my zipper. I'm going to zip it back up to the top. The zipper tab, the actual tab, you can actually have that going up. Now I'm just going to take the back and I'm going to open it back up again. Lay it flat. And with this, I'm going to do it at my machine, because I'm going to use the zipper foot. You're just going to do another basting stitch. So now instead of just basting to the seam allowance, we're going to be basting all the way through to the back. You're going to start here. You're going to do it 1/4 inch away from the teeth. We're going to stitch down, across, past the stop. So you're gonna, here's the stop right here. I'm going to go a little bit past that, go across, and then I'm going to come up on the other side until I get to the top, and that's going to be a basting stitch. For this step, I definitely recommend using a contrasting thread, something that's going to be easy to spot. I switched to a zipper foot, and I'm going to make sure that I do my basting stitch 1/4 inch away from my teeth. D, on outside, stitch along basting through all thicknesses as shown. Using a zipper foot, remove basting. I just flipped my garment over, so now we're looking at the right side of the garment, and this is why we did the contrasting basting thread, because now it's a lot easier to see. All we're doing is stitching right on top of our basting stitch, and I'm using a matching thread now, and I'm just using a regular width stitch. So you're going to make sure that you back stitch and you stitch right along that basting stitch. Also, when you're done, you can remove all the basting stitches, so that includes the ones that are on the side and also the one that's right in the middle of that seam line, and that's what's going to open up our zipper and allow us to use it. Step 10, stitch back to front and shoulders in double stitch seams, press seams toward back. We're now going to be taking the back and the front and we're going to be stitching them together at the shoulder seams. So here are the shoulder seams, this is the neckline, and this is the zipper I just put in my back. So I have the back right side facing up, going to grab the front, place it right side down because I want right side to right side. Flip it this way. Okay, now it's right side to right side. You're going to match the shoulder seams, making sure that you're matching not only the ends, but also the single notch that's at the shoulder. Once these areas are pinned, you're going to do the double stitch. So that means you're stitching at the 5/8 line. From there, you're going up 1/4 inch, and then you're doing another set of stitches. So 5/8 stitch, 3/8 stitch, you're going to trim your seam allowance so it's close to that 3/8 stitch, and then press your seams towards the back. Step 11, pin back to front at sides, matching symbols, adjust ease, baste, stitch in, double stitch seams, press seams toward back. We're now going to be sewing our side seams together of the front and the back. I just turned my shirt sideways. So here's one side seam. We're going to be doing the same exact thing for the other one. I'm just going to show you on one. This is the armhole area and this is the bottom of the shirt. The back and the front are put together and it should automatically be right sides together. You're going to want to match the top, the double notch at the bottom, and we also have our single dot right here. I have another one on this side. So those should match as well. Now you may notice as you start to pin it, it may be off a little bit on either the dot or the notches. So in order to fix this, this is why we did our easing stitches. You're just going to pull, you're just pulling one thread. I'm not pulling the front and the basting together, just one would do. Going to pull it, and you'll see that the fabric will start to gather or ease, and we're not trying to create any ruffles or puckering or anything like that. You're just slightly gathering the area so it just kind of cinches in a little bit, and then once you start pinning it, you'll see it'll line up more correctly. So once you're able to get everything matching, go ahead, pin both side seams, do the double stitch, so 5/8 regular stitch, don't forget to back stitch, 5/8, 3/8, trim your seam allowance so it's close to that 3/8 line, and then again, you're going to press it so it goes towards the back. Steps 12 through 16 are for other views, so now we're skipping on to step number 17, stay stitch top neck edge. We're now prepping our shirt in order to put in the collar. So what you need to do is we're going to look at the top neckline. So this is the front, this is the back. You can see I opened up my zipper so it'd be a little bit easier. All you're going to do, what a stay stitch is, you're going to stitch around the whole neckline. You're not stitching any pieces together. Everything's just individual single layer. You're starting from one side at the back, you're going around the front and then to the back to the other side. You're doing a regular width stitch and you're doing it a 1/2 inch from the raw edge. So if I was doing on the front, my stitch would be a 1/2 inch from this raw edge about down here, and then I'm just going to stitch all along the whole neckline. Step 18, views interfacing to wrong side of 2 collar sections and 1 collar band section following manufacturer's directions. We're going to be applying our fusible interfacing to the collar and then also to the collar band. So this is piece 6. You should have cut 2 out of your fabric, 1 out of your interfacing, and out of the number 5 piece, which is the collar, you should have cut out 4 out of the fabric and 2 out of the interfacing. So as of right now, we're only going to be applying the interfacing to 1 set of the number 5 piece. That means one pair. So when you lay them wrong side facing up, they're going in 2 different directions, and then one of the 6. So I'm going to grab my interfacing here, making sure that my iron is heating up, and I'm actually just going to show you on one piece. So we'll just do it on one collar section, but you're going to still do it to all 3 of those pieces. Grab the interfacing. All right, here we go. So when I cut out my interfacing, after I finish cutting out, I just trim it so it's a little bit smaller than my fabric piece. So that way it fits a little bit better and we don't have to worry about interfacing going over the edges. Now when you fill the interfacing, one side should feel smooth and one side you should definitely feel those little glue bubbles. That is the side that gets fused to the wrong side of your fabric. So this is wrong side facing up. The side with the glue bubbles go to that side. So you're going to carefully lay it down. You're going to lay a press cloth over it. And when you lay it down, make sure that you carefully just set it down so you're not shifting anything underneath. So just carefully set it down right on top. Then you're going to dampen the cloth of the area where you're going to be pressing. Your iron should be pretty hot because it needs to be hot in order to melt the glue bubbles, and that's what's going to create the fuse. And then I carefully just lay my iron down for about 4 seconds, and then carefully lift it up and move on to the next section. And I'm going to do that till the whole area is covered of my piece underneath, because I want to make sure that I don't just shift my iron, because then I may have a problem with moving my piece underneath. So if I lift this up, I can test it, and if I can't take off the interfacing, then it's fused on pretty good, but you can see on this side, which I haven't done yet, it still comes up. But once it's all fused for all 3 pieces, then we can move on to the next step. Step 19, stitch 1 uninterfaced collar section to each interface collar section, leaving notched edges open. Trim. You're going to take each one of your collar pieces that have the interfacing to it, and you're going to pair it with one of your collar pieces that does not have any interfacing. So you're going to place them right side to right side, and you're going to pin the edges that do not have the notches. So this side has a notch, so we're not pinning this side. We're going to do this side and then this curved section right here. This is going to be the same area that we're going to stitch our 5/8 seam allowance, and I'll show you one that I've already done. So here's one that's stitched. They're pinned together, and you can see I stitched here and then around here. All you need to do afterwards is you need to trim it, which I've already started trimming here. And then for any curved areas of my seams, I always clip these little inverted notches. So that way when you flip it right side out, it doesn't get all bunched up. So I still need to trim this. I'm leaving about 1/8 of an inch past my seam line. Step 20, turn, press, baste raw edges together. So then you're going to take each collar section, you're going to flip it so it's right side out. You're going to press all the sides that you stitched on. We still have this opening up here. So this is the raw edge with the notches they were talking about. All you have to do is line up the raw edges together, pin all along here, and then do a basting stitch. Step 21, tack collar sections together at large circles. So you're going to take both of your collar sections, and you should have a large circle from your pattern piece on this curved edge here. So all they want you to do is bring them together so that the large circles, which you can see right here, are touching, and then up here it's touching. Once it gets past that, it just kind of splits off. I'm going to just pin these 2 together to hold them, and we'll get a little closer as I show you how I stitch them together. For this part, I would get some needle and thread, and I would use a matching thread. I'm just using black so it stands out a little bit better. And I'm just basically doing a small whip stitch. So all I'm doing is grabbing a little bit from one side, coming up on the other side and pulling it through. And this is just to basically hold these two pieces together. We're just tacking them together. And then I'm going to come back to my original side, grab a little bit of fabric from that, and then a little bit of fabric from the other side. I'm going to pull out this pin so it gets out of the way here. And don't pull too fast or else it'll start to knot up. And then when I pull these together, you see it brings the two sides together. So I'm just going to keep doing it from my large circles up to the top of the collar. Step 22, turn in seam allowance on single notched edge of uninterfaced collar band section. Press, easing in fullness, trim press seam allowances to 3/8 of an inch. You're going to take your other number 6 piece. This is the collar band, and you're going to take the one that does not have any interfacing on it, because one has interfacing, this one does not. Have it wrong side facing up. You're going to take not the side that has the double notches, but the other side that has the single notches, and you're going to fold up to the wrong side 5/8 of an inch, and you're going to pin it, which I've already done here. You're going to press all along the fold line, and then all you have to do is you can remove the pins once you press it. Take your scissors from this raw edge. You're going to trim off 1/4 of an inch, so you're leaving 3/8 of an inch left, and you're going to do that all along this one curved area. Step 23, pin uninterfaced side of collar to interface collar band between center back and seam lines. Pin uninterfaced collar band over collar, baste, stitch, leaving neck edge open, trim. This is my collar band, and this is the one that has the interfacing on it. So I'm going to lay it with the right side facing up so the interfacing is down towards the table. I'm now going to grab my collar piece, and the side that doesn't have the interfacing, so I'm just looking on the inside. So this side has interfacing, this side does not have interfacing. The side that does not have interfacing goes to the right side of this collar band. And you're going to see that the center circle should match the center of your collar, and the 2 double notches should match the 2 double notches. Now these ends are not going to make it all the way to the end. Instead, they're going to be 5/8 of an inch in from each side, which should be the small circles here from your pattern piece. So I'm going to line everything up, and you may have to do a little bit of easing with your pins, just because this is going to start bunching up since we're trying to fit it on a curve. You're just going to have to keep pinning, stretching in order to get everything to fit in the curve. And then I would baste these 2 pieces together just to hold everything into place. After you baste these 2 pieces together, you're then going to grab the other collar band. So this is the one that doesn't have the interfacing and also has that folded edge on this side right here. So you're going to do the same thing. You're basically sandwiching the 2 collar bands in between, or having the collar in between them. And this is going to be right side to right side. And I'm going to make sure that the ends match up with each of the collar bands. The double notch matches up. There's another double notch. The center matches up, and then the ends over here. Now you can also baste these pieces all together, but ultimately what you're going to do is you're going to start at the folded edge of the top neckband or collar band, and you're going to stitch at the 5/8 line, which should take you right next to my collar here, so the white part of my collar. And I'm going to start here, stitch up 5/8 of an inch, pivot, stitch across the top also at the 5/8 of an inch, pivot again, and stitch down until I get to the folded edge of that top collar band again. Again, when you do this, doing the sides, you should be right next to the collar. You don't really want to stitch into it. It should just be right next to it. Once you're done with that, you can go ahead and trim all your seams. Step 24, turn press. Here is my piece, and you can see I trimmed my seam allowance, and I even clipped my little notches into the curved areas of the piece. You're going to take both the front and back portion of the collar band, and you're going to flip them out. You could just keep the collar where it is. Just flipping it up, and then you're going to press it. Step 25, pin collar band to neck edge, clipping top neck edge where necessary. Baste, stitch, keeping pressed edge free, trim, press seam toward collar band. So now I'm going to take my top. So this is the front, this area right here, both sides. This is the back, and I just opened up the zipper so it would be a little bit easier to see the whole neckline of the shirt. I have it right side facing out. I'm going to grab my collar with the collar band. The one that has the interfacing, this one right here that I'm touching, you're going to take this raw edge and you're going to line it up with the raw edge of the neckline. So you can see it has a single notch, and we have a single notch here on the neckline. I also have another one here, and this would match with this as well. The ends are going to line up end to end. Now if you need to, you can clip little notches into the neckline to open it up a little bit more, so then it fits more properly with the neckband. But you're going to pin, you're going to baste, and you're going to stitch at the 5/8 seam line. You can go ahead and trim this. Just make sure that you keep this folded edge, this part of the neckband, out of the way. And then once you finish doing your stitching, you're going to take your seam allowance, and you're not going to press it open. Instead, you're going to take this and you're going to press it up, and all the seam allowance is going to be pressed up as well. So it's going up towards the collar. Step 26, slip stitch pressed edge over seam. Now we're looking at the inside of the garment. So this is the seam we just created, and it's trimmed and it's pressed up toward the collar. You're going to take this other side. So this is the one that we had folded over and then trimmed. And when you lay it down, it's going to lay right over our seam. So all these stitches are going to disappear and everything's going to be enclosed. Next, we're going to slip stitch the folded edge. So we'll get a little bit closer so I can show you what that looks like. The slip stitch is going to be done by hand, so you're going to need a matching thread. I'm going to go ahead and use a contrasting one so it shows up a little bit better. And you have the two sides. So I have the folded side, and then I have the side of the shirt. So we're just going to go back and forth between the two sides. So I'm going to start by grabbing a little bit of the shirt side. So it's really the zipper tape here. And you just need a little bit here. And you're making sure that you're doing it close to the fold line. And try to tuck that knot underneath there so it doesn't show. So here it is, it's coming off of the shirt side. And now I'm going to grab a little bit of the folded side. Okay. And now I'm going to grab a little bit of the shirt side. Again, you want to stay as close to the fold as you can. And now I'm going to grab a little bit of the folded side again. So I'm just going back and forth between the two sides. And you want to keep your stitches fairly small and fairly consistent in length. If you're using matching thread, then you're really not going to see very much on the right hand side of the garment. So now I'm on the fold, so now I'm grabbing a little bit of my shirt material and then back to the fold. We're now going to skip ahead. Step 40, stitch seam in each sleeve section. So now we're going to be working with piece number 8, and out of this you should have cut 4 out of your fabric. For each one of your 4 pieces, you're going to bring this side and this side together. Make sure you have the right side facing up so the right sides are together when you pin it. And this section right here, this is the underarm seam. So you're going to stitch a 5/8 seam allowance, and you're going to press your seam open, and you should end up with 4 pieces that look like this. Step 41. For each sleeve with right sides together, pin 2 sleeve sections together having raw edges even. Stitch lower edge, trim, for facing understitch 1 sleeve section. You're going to take 1 pair of your sleeves. Remember we have 4, so you're going to take 2 and you're going to flip 1 out of each pair right side out, and then 1 is going to be wrong side out, because what you're going to do is you're going to take 1, put it inside the other, so then the right sides together. And you need to make sure that you're matching the right one with the right sleeve. So when you put one inside the other, the single notch and the double notch should be matching. They should be on the same side. So over here I have a double notch, over here I have a single notch. If this one that I put in, it was flipped, then that just means it needs to go with the one of the other sleeve parts. What you're matching is the bottom part of the sleeve, so this raw edge all the way around here. You're going to pin and you're going to stitch a 5/8 seam allowance all the way around the lower edge of the sleeve. After you finish stitching down here, make sure to trim your seam allowance. The next step is we're going to be doing the understitch. The inside piece of the sleeve, this is going to be the facing. So right here, this section, this is the facing. What we're going to do is pull the 2 sides apart, or the 2 pieces. So I have the facing in one hand, the outer shell of the sleeve in my left hand. But when I'm pulling them apart, I want to make sure that my seam allowance ends up being folded so that it's underneath the facing side. So I'm just going to pull it up, and if I was to turn this the other way, as I'm pulling them apart, you can see the seam allowance is just going on the side of the facing. What we're going to do next, we're going to take it to our sewing machine and we're going to do an understitch. So you're going to stitch on the side of the facing, and you're just stitching the facing and the seam allowance under it. So we're going to be stitching those 2 pieces together. This is going to stay out of the way. As I'm doing my understitch, I'm trying to get as close to the seam line as I can, but staying on the side of the facing. And I'm just doing a regular width stitch, and as I'm turning my sleeve, I'm making sure every time I do a turn, I'm filling underneath to make sure that the seam allowance is underneath the facing. And we do this is because it's going to help the facing stay on the inside of the sleeve and give it a nice clean appearance. Step 42, turn facing to inside, press, baste raw edges together. So this is what my sleeve looks like after I do the understitching. And now I'm going to take my facing and I'm going to put it back so it's on the inside of my sleeve. Now when you do it, you're going to have the right side of the fabric of the sleeve on the outside, and when you look on the inside of the sleeve, you're also going to see the right side of the fabric. You can go ahead and press this whole bottom lower edge, and then you're going to pin all the raw edges on the top portion of the sleeve here, because we're going to baste them together. And I already have one done. So this is all basted. And I just did it a 1/2 inch from the edge. You don't really have to worry about any back stitching, just go around the whole thing. Step 43, ease stitch upper edge of sleeve between small circles as shown. On the cap of your sleeve, you should have 2 small dots. I have one here and here, and then you have a large circle at the top of the cap. Between the 2 small ones, what you're going to do is you're going to do an ease stitch. So this is what's going to help us gather the top of the sleeve so that it fits into our armhole. So starting at either side, this side or this side, all you're going to do is a basting stitch with no back stitching at the 5/8 mark. You're going to stitch from one small dot to the other small dot. Then you're going to go up 1/4 inch, so at the 3/8 line, and then you're going to do another row of basting stitches. Let's skip ahead to step 46. With right sides together, pin sleeve into armhole, placing large circle at shoulder seam. Adjust ease, baste, easing sleeve slightly to fit below small circles. Stitch again 1/4 inch away in seam allowance. trim close to stitching, press seam allowances flat, turn seam towards sleeve. We're going to be putting our sleeves into our armhole. So I have my shirt here. I have it wrong side facing up. Here's one of the armholes. I'm going to grab a sleeve, and the cap of the sleeve is going to come up through the armhole. So it's right side to right side. Just going to kind of fit everything in there. You can see the basting on my sleeve. Now the underarm seam of the sleeve right here is going to match the side seam of the shirt. I'm going to start pinning this into place. The large circle at the cap of the sleeve, that goes with the shoulder seam of the shirt. So I'll pin that into place. Also, you're going to match the notches. So I have a single notch on this side, a double notch on this side, making sure that my sleeve is in the same position. Again, if it's not in the same position and it's flipped, that just means you need to put the sleeve in the other armhole. Just need to flip it. All right, and then I'm gonna pin the double notch on this side. Now you'll notice that the sleeve seems to be a little bit bigger than what you have for the armhole. That's why we did these easing stitches. So if it seems to be too big, you're going to take one set of thread from our easing stitches and you're just going to pull, and it'll start cinching it up, and you're not trying to create any puckering or anything like that. You're just kind of gathering it and then distributing the gather so it's equal in the distribution here, and then it'll fit into the sleeve area a little bit easier. So as it starts to fit, start to pin it. So I'm going to pin it all the way around the whole armhole. Then you're going to baste it in. So everything's going to be set and we won't need all these pins. You can stitch the 5/8 seam allowance, then you're going to go up a 1/4 inch. So we're doing that double stitch. So 5/8, 3/8, and then you're going to trim close to your second stitch, and your seam allowance is going to be pressed into or towards the sleeve. We're going to skip to step 52. Sew hooks and eyes to collar band at small circles as shown. So we're finishing up our fasteners by attaching hooks and eyes to the top inside collar band section. So here is the inside of my garment, the inside of the zipper. This is the inside of the collar band and the inside of the collar. So what I'm going to do is, you can see I've already stitched on one pair of hooks and eyes. We just need one more pair because we're going to do 2 pairs total. And you need some sewing thread and also a needle, because we're going to sew this on by hand. So let me show you. This is the hook section of the hook and eye. So it's going to go right above where this other one is. And I always start with this one first. Now you'll notice if I turn this, it has 2 holes at the top or at the end. This is what we're going to be stitching through. And it's flat on one side and then it curves up. This flat section is the one that goes on the fabric. So I'm just going to do it at the top, and the end of the hook goes towards the fold of the fabric. So I'm going to hold it with one finger, grab my needle and thread, and I'm going to start with this hole over here and then move to this section. But usually you can see how this one's stitched on. I use matching thread here, but I basically did a whip stitch through one set, about five or six stitches, and then I moved on to this one and I did 5 or 6 stitches. So we'll start here. And I'm starting on the outside. I'm grabbing a little bit of fabric and then coming up on the inside section of that opening. And then I'm just going to do it again. And I would do this. This is what I would do 5 or 6 times. Do one more. And if I had done that 5 or 6 times, then I can go ahead and move on to this one. And we're going to pretend that it's already stitched on there, because now I'm going to do the eye section. So here's the eye. And you'll see it's the same sort of thing. We have two little small holes and then you have one big opening here. So that is the eye section, and we would sew through the two small ones here. Just to place it, I'm going to hook it on to my hook, and then I'm going to grab the other side of the collar and kind of place it so the collar band is closed. And it's not easy because these pieces are really small. All right, let's hold this here. I just want to make sure that everything is lined up and even. So once it's in position, I can unhook it, hold it with this hand, and then I would do the same thing where I would stitch through 5 or 6 times on this side and the same thing on this side. Last step, step 53, make 5/8 inch narrow hem at lower edge. So now we're looking at the bottom of our shirt. This is still the inside of my garment, and you're going to fold over, so from the right side to the wrong side. So this is the right side of the garment. Fold over 5/8 of an inch, because now we're going to start doing the hem, which is the last thing we need to do. So I'm grabbing my sewing gauge, setting it at the 5/8 inch. And then I'm going to pin it into place, and you're going to do this around the whole bottom section of the shirt because we want it to have a nice, neat appearance, and we don't want it to get all frayed looking. So I would do this all the way around, and then you could go ahead and press it to the bottom because we want to make sure it's going to have a nice crisp bottom there. And I've already started hemming it. So once I've done this and I've pressed it, the next step then is you're going to go around again. You can remove a couple of pins at a time, and you're going to take this raw edge and you're going to fold it to meet your crease that's at the bottom now. So this section is now going to be half the size that it was, and then you're going to repin it again. So then that's going to be the final width of your hem. We're going to take it to the machine then, and you're going to stitch right along the top of the top fold there. Here's the top of my hem, and I'm just going to be stitching right on top of that fold there, being careful not to accidentally cross over so I'm on the main fabric, because if we want to stay up here so then our hem stays closed. I'm just using a regular width stitch and a matching thread color. After you finish the hem, the top is now complete. Don't forget to remove your basting stitches and any fabric markers. We hope you enjoy learning how to make this top from Butterick 5890. Make sure to check out our other videos and visit ProfessorPincushion.com to view our complete library with well over 150 sewing video tutorials. New tutorials are released regularly, so make sure to subscribe to be notified of the next release. Thanks for watching!